The great African-American educator, Booker T. Washington, once said, you go to school, you learn about the Germans and the French, but not about your own race. I hope a time will come when you go to school and study black history. Tonight, I want to invite all of you to join me for the next 15 minutes or so as we walk down the path towards Kenya's independence, culminating on Jamhuri Day, December 12, 1964. Welcome. On October 20th, 1952, Sir Evelyn Baring, the governor of the British colony of Kenya, declared a state of emergency, and a dusk to dawn curfew was imposed, and over 180 people were arrested. The events that led to this harsh state of affairs date back to 1885 at the Berlin Conference, when the Europeans partitioned Africa for themselves. The British founded the East African Protectorate, and later on, it was not until 1920 that Kenya became a British Crown colony. And over the 1920s and the 1930s, the colonial policies eroded the rights of the African people. The Maasai, the Kikuyu, the Nandi, their land was taken away. And this created a lot of anger, such that in 1943, the members of the Gema, Gikuyu, Ebu, Meru, Akaba, all decided they should unite and fight for their land and freedom. At this moment, let us pause for a second and ask ourselves, why did the Africans resist colonization? Number one, land. Their land was taken away and they were made squatters. Number two, forced labor. They were forced to labor on the very land that was taken away from them. Number three, foreign rule. Some people came and imposed on them that they should be ruling there. And number four, taxes. Since time immemorial, the Africans had never paid taxes to anybody. In fact, money did not exist. And now they were forced to pay taxes like poll tax. Poll tax was on a per person. Then there was the hut tax. Hut tax was on a per building. Now, the hut tax has a funny story, in that in addition to raising money for the colonial administration, it was actually meant to curb polygamy. How? If a man had 4 wives, and each of them was living in one house, those are 4 units, plus his. Therefore, those are 5 units to pay taxes for. But suppose he only had 1 wife, like the pastor. Now, that meant only 1 unit to pay tax for. Now, when the colonialists came, they came along with another group of people, and that is the missionaries. The missionaries came to spread the word of God. And as they did so, just like the colonialists, they also established schools. And so with time, more and more people were attending schools where they not only learned how to read and write, but they also learned how freedom and justice works. And this was a great eye-opener. Another event that was an eye-opener across the entire African continent was the Second World War. Why? Because the British recruited Africans into a unit called King African Rifles, and these African soldiers fought alongside the British soldiers, and therefore they learned a bit about the art of war. They could use some military equipment. They could even make some crude guns. And this was a great eye-opener. And then there was another thing, a secret, which everybody knew. And that was all the 3 aliens, that is, the colonialists, the missionaries, and the white settlers in the farms, they all had blood. Cut them, blood will flow. Pinch them, they will feel pain. So, wacha tupigane. And therefore, the great Mau Mau War of liberation was the culmination of very many factors. And when the situation rose to unbearable levels for the colonial administration, they sought the help of the British government. And the British government sent the British Army. And to suppress the activities of the Mau Mau, that is why the governor declared a state of emergency on 20th October 1952. And all the leaders of Kenya African Union were arrested. And they included the Kapenguria Six: Bildad Kagia, Kongo Karoba, Fred Kubai, Jomo Kenyatta, Paul Gay, and Achieng Oneko. These six, they were tried and were sentenced each to 7 years imprisonment, hard labor, and permanent isolation. And while they were in detention in Kapenguria, like Kenyatta, the rest of the freedom movement leaders, people like Tom Mboya, Ogiga Odiga, Katana Ngala, they kept up the pressure for independence and release of the detainees. Now, you might want to ask yourself, at this time, where was the native living? Now, I'll tell you. The native was living in the village, and each village had a guard post that was manned by African home guards who were loyal to the colonialists. And there was always a dusk to dawn curfew. And every 6 a.m. in the morning, a whistle would blow. And everybody had to get out of their hut, line up for inspection. Why? In order to determine who went into the forest at night and who came back from the forest. Woe unto you if you were suspected. And after the inspection, the people would go and do some forced labor, working in farms, digging roads, digging stadiums, and all that. And as they did so, they would sing songs of freedom. Chiana chai siraeri, delia chiale misiri, nechiaruti dagio wera monene muno. Wali wa maturufale nago tuaganyeki, nechiarere ire Jehovah amarutioko boine. Meaning, when the children of Israel were in slavery in Egypt, they were forced to do hard labor, cutting grass, making bricks, building, and they cried unto God to save them from their misery. Life was hard, very hard. But with time, the colonial administration realized that social, political, and even land reforms were necessary. And therefore, the African participation in the political process kept on growing up, because the colonialists kept on relenting little by little, such that in 1954, all the three races, that is, the Europeans, the Asians, and the Africans, were admitted into the Kenya Legislative Council, LegCo. This was the parliament of the day, and it was on a representative basis. It is at this time that Daniel Arap Moi entered politics as the representative of the Rift Valley province. And so you can see that on the political diplomacy level, the call, the demand for independence was rising. While on the battlefront, the Mau Mau was waging a very successful and well-coordinated war, led by people like Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi, Field Marshal Musa Matejaguo, General China, and others. And Mariama, yes, thank you, Laban. Now, Kimathi formed the Kenya Defense Council to coordinate all the activities of the Mau Mau forest fighters. And for this, a price was put on his head. He was captured in 1956, and the following year, February 18, 1957, he was hanged at Kamete Maximum Security Prison. Up to today, nobody knows where he was buried. When I was growing up as a little boy in the 70s in Yeri, I used to see an old truck that was abandoned in one of the homesteads, and it had not moved for many years. And I asked my father, why? And that truck, my father began, has a big, long history. During the Mau Mau War of Liberation, the colonialists put a price for the capture, dead or alive, of Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi, because he was the leader of the Mau Mau forest fighters. Mr. Dirango, in whose homestead you see that truck, was a colonial home guard. And he shot Kimathi in the leg, which led to his capture and death through hanging. Mr. Dirango went on and collected the reward, 500 British sterling pounds, and he bought that truck. But as the villain who betrayed the freedom hero, his truck could not do business. It used to be parked at the village guard post for security at night. But this did not deter young boys coming in at night and writing with chalk on the side, "Do not hire this truck." It costed Kimathi his leg and his life. And sure enough, that message was loud and clear. Nobody hired that truck. Dirango actually died at the age of 80 in 1986, a miserable and dejected man, having lived a life as a social outcast. Anyway, let's go back to our main story. Now Kimathi has died. Now Kimathi has died, and now over the next several years, that is 1958, 59, and 60, the colonialists involved African leaders as well as white colonial leaders to plan for the country's transition into independence. Remember that at this time, Kenyatta is still in prison. He was released in April 1961. And after many negotiation meetings, including the famous Lancaster Conference, a constitution was produced, which led to Kenya being granted internal self-rule on 1st of June 1963, with Jomo Kenyatta as the Prime Minister and Queen Elizabeth II as the head of state. Yes, you heard it right. The current Queen of England was the head of state of Kenya. Remember, she had become queen in 1952 after her father, King George IV, died. And at that time, the young Elizabeth was vacationing at the treetops, Nyeri, there, Kenya. And she had to cut short her vacation to go back to be crowned queen and she has been queen since then. Now, I hear that she will retire at the age of 95 on health grounds, but this I didn't say. Now, just hold on, Chairman. When the internal self-rule was granted, the Union Jack is the British flag, was lowered down for good from the land of Kenya, and up went the new Kenyan flag. A man called Kisoi Munyao climbed all the way to the top of Mount Kenya and there hoisted the new Kenyan flag. I know some of you here, Mugweru there, Laban, Lea, Dr. Moura, Mushiri, and many others here I can see. I know you might remember this song. Munyao, haisha fendera, ni amaroli matatu, haisha fendera, harambe, now, fendera. And now, the following year, on December 12, 1964, Kenya became a republic with Jomo Kenyatta as the first president of the Republic of Kenya. Now, yes. Now, when he became president, the first thing that he told the people was, let no one revenge against his brother or neighbor or anybody for anything that happened during the struggle for independence. Forgive, forgive, forgive. And as you do so, walk with pride and walk tall, because now you are a free person in your own free country. Maana yake, kanyanga nchi yako kwa nguvu na raha, hilo ni hakikisho la raisi wetu. Zamani tulikuwa ati number 4, sasa about tani tuko number 1. Kenyan taifa letu Kenya, Kenya, Kenya nchi yetu. Now, just 3 seconds. Just 3 seconds. Now, as you rejoice, always remember to offer a prayer for your country. And thank you, Bwana Mushiri, for the prayers that you just offered. And this is exactly what the late Kakai Kilonzo, he of KILIMA brothers, sang and said. Wibo huu ninaibao, sio wibo ni maobi, nikioba Mwenyezi Mungu Baba aibariki Kenya yangu. Ewe Kenya nchi yangu, ewe Kenya mama yangu, si Kenya baba yangu, sitakuacha milele. Kwa jina la Baba na la Mwanao, Roho Mtakatifu, amina. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason why we are here. Not just to be witnesses of chance to this occasion, but to remember, to honor, and to celebrate Jamhuri Day for our motherland Kenya. God bless Kenya. God bless you. Thank you.
Akili zangu nguvu zangu nimeziweka mbele yako. Bibi yangu na watoto nimewaweka mbele yako. tabu zangu shida zangu oh, ziangalie Kenya yangu. Tabu zangu shida zangu oh, ziangalie Kenya yangu.